Welcome back to Fashion is Art. Today, what we're going to break down is the red pill in fashion. Now, we had some videos in the past about this. You may have seen the ones with Ricky Lowe, and I'll pin some of these so you have a good idea of what I'm talking about if you're newer. But essentially, what I'm going to do today is break down some basics surrounding the red pill and what I recommend most of the people who are watching this channel to do with it, and also how it's going to impact your fashion and how you can use it to manipulate, kind of get what you need out of it. The biggest thing with the red pill is it's not about providing prescriptions or specific solutions. It's taking what you know and using it to the best of your ability to fulfill whatever your end game is. So that's why I wanted to preface this with. Now, before we get started, make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel below to continue getting this great content, and make sure you're notified for when I drop anything new. Now, without further ado, we're going to get right into it. The red pill is a praxeology, meaning it is a study of human behavior based off how people act, not what they say. For example, there are a lot of statistics that are involved in the red pill that have gone pretty public and have caused a lot of people to rethink their approaches to intersexual dynamics, i.e., relationships. One of those very outlier statistics are that is the 80-20 rule. The 80-20 rule essentially is that regarding all platforms, primarily seen through online dating research, that on 100% of the women are only attracted to about 20% of the men, leaving the other 80% of men to figure out how they can become more attractive, how they can get a woman's attention, more importantly, how they can solve their reproductive problem, meaning they're not having sex. 1 in 3 men are still virgins at this point. So that's another statistic that's been going around recently, which again has brought a lot of people to the spirit and thought, okay, how can I solve this problem? Well, there's a few options. Naturally, you can accumulate a lot of money, and maybe that will help you. Some other options that people think of is, okay, let me just looks max, get the best look I can possibly get. But is that a guarantee that you'll actually be able to get a woman for real? You can get a swipe right, but there's plenty of times you can swipe right on the girl on Tinder and you'll never see her in person. So what else is there? That's where the red pill comes in, where there's certain techniques such as game and all these other things that are recommended or needed to come together and complement yourself completely. And one of the biggest positives I would say is the red pill does encourage people to become a 100% man. Now, the negatives. There are some there are chances that you go down a pessimistic route when you learn a lot of things about the red pill. And I'll shout out Rollo Tomasi here, The Rational Male, who I will be referencing later on in this video. You're going to want to check out his first book, The Rational Male, to get a great basis of what I'm referring to right here, as well as a good understanding generally of what the red pill is. When you learn a lot of this stuff, it can get you to a nihilistic state where you're going to feel defeated, you're going to want to quit, and you're just not going to want to date altogether, which is understandable. And you might even want to go further than that and say, you know what, I just don't want to pursue women at all. No kids, no marriage, no nothing. So the con of that, even though you're faced with a lot of harsh realities, you're going to see how life is in a real sense. One of the other stats that are really prevalent is that 70% of all all divorces are initiated by women. So when men learn the red pill and they see these stats popping up that, they're public knowledge, right? You can go Google this, you can go search this up for you, and you can find the actual statistics, and you can find how often the husband gets control or support, or even just 50-50 of the kids. That's also not too great either. I believe it's 90% the woman would get primary custody. So all these factors go into play, and that can lead to a very negative feeling for men when it comes to those sort of things. So my advice to all of you is as you learn this information, take what you need, get out, and revisit as needed. That's really essentially the biggest thing because you don't want to also become too weighed down with all these realities. Getting that out the way, let's go further into this video where red pill and the fashion world collide. Is essentially first off through your confidence level. You may have heard one of the first things that you may have heard from people a little older than you, a little more experienced than you. They might ask you, I remember when I was younger, someone asked me, Braid, what's the most important thing to get a girl? I thought it was looks. And this dude didn't have the looks. Don't get me wrong. He was overweight. He was bald. He was about as tall as me. And at that time, I was like 5'7", 5'6", something along that range. Anyways, it was confidence. Why is confidence so important? Because just the confidence to be able to approach a woman, to be able to state your true intentions, to be able to escalate as needed is a massive turn on. Now, where does that confidence come from? Well, it doesn't pop out of the air. It doesn't, you're not necessarily born with it. Throughout life, you acquire a certain level of confidence based on how other people perceive you and treat you. The average man is not going to come out the womb and literally get heaped a lot of praise. They will just be treated by everyone else. Men typically don't really get compliments like that, as you can imagine. And that's okay. We're not on here to complain. We're here to state facts. So the facts are that as you grow up and you don't get these things, you're not going to be naturally as confident because you have a insecurity that, oh, if I'm not getting this type of reception, then it must mean I'm not this, I'm not that. I might be ugly, my nose might be too big, I might be a little more overweight. So you have to become something. You have to earn that confidence. And one of the primary ways you would earn that confidence is by understanding how you can build your own self up through the red pill philosophies. And again, today we're going to talk about 3 philosophies that will tie in to fashion. And those 3 are setting up your brand, optimizing your Instagram, which is something we've talked about before, but I'm going to take it from a different point. And finally, using the red pill to let your strengths shine through. Before you begin on all that, what is your goal? No, I mean it. What's your goal? What do you want to achieve from the dating marketplace? How do you want people to feel when they see you walking down the street? How much do you care about the way people perceive you? Because me personally, I don't care too much. However, I do know that the better I look, the better response I'll get from people. If I go out to the club and I'm in a tank top, I'm in some shorts with paint covered, and I've got slides that I've had for, 10, 15 years that are a little broken at the bottom, a little busted, I'm probably not going to get any compliments. Probably not going to have a girl who's going to throw me any sort of choosing signals, any sort of positive reinforcement, no like compliments, anything like that. Now, take that same man and he comes to a club or a bar. He's dressed to the nine. He's got denim. He's got on a nice iron plaid shirt, form fitting. He's probably, there's no, again, guarantee that because you dress, you're going to get much more, stronger points from the opposite sex, but it definitely does help. And it's going to make you feel better because you know that you look good. Naturally, if you look good, you will feel good. And if you feel good, that energy is going to be shown to other people. So circling back around to those 3 points I mentioned earlier. What is your brand? What is your personal brand? What type of outfits do you wear? How do you want to stick to that? What you wear shows off who you are. I know a lot of people will have like a specific style. A lot of my friends will have a specific look, and you can kind of tell like, okay, that's their thing for a reason. You want to be very consistent in the person that you portray because consistency is very important. That's another way that you can catch the right energy or vibe of someone else, is keeping yourself consistent. No one likes inconsistencies at all. So you want to keep that in mind verbatim. Once you define what your goals are for the dating marketplace, that's going to set you apart. Do you have short-term goals? Are they long-term dating goals? Are you just looking to spin plates, which in the sphere is dating non-exclusively until you find someone that you're like, okay, this is my right person. I'm gonna see how this goes, bet them a little more time, and then from that point on, if it works, it works. If it don't, it don't. So once you define those skills, you will tailor your Instagram to that. If you are looking for something more short term, and if you're wanting to target short term prospects, this is what you would do. I recommend few pictures of like kids, more pictures of dogs, a lot of travel. I would put out a more Playboy-ish lifestyle. A lot of people call and say, why are we talking about promoting a Playboy lifestyle? What's that going to do for you? Well, let's think of it in reality. If you see a beautiful woman on Instagram, and when we see beautiful women on Instagram, the first thought in my mind was like, man, I like to be with her. I'd like to take her out, anything of that nature. When women see men who are out doing their own thing, in control of their life, they're traveling, they're living their best life, it's an attraction trigger. You don't have to necessarily be posing shirtless on Instagram to get attention from the opposite sex. That might help if your body's in shape, definitely. And that's another concept throughout the manosphere. The red pill is money, muscles, and game. You improve all those, that will help you tremendously, as I talked about earlier. But you don't have to pose shirtless. I don't think I've ever posed shirtless on my Instagram, yet I do all right. So that's something to keep a note of. You just want to have something that's optimized to facilitate that sort of energy. Long game, flip it. You'll want to have posts where you're dressing a little more mature. You, again, want to be building towards something. You want to be having outfits that will dress much more mature. You want to have a more grown outlook, more pictures with kids and dogs. Not too many club type of things. You want to be a little more cognizant of that. You want to approach the right type of women as well. When you're on Instagram and on these platforms, you want to diagnose, okay, am I posting, does that reflect what the other person's interest is? So having that knowledge of like, okay, what are some red flags that I would want to look for in someone's Instagram? The red pill lets your strengths shine through. When you're out and about and you start getting compliments on certain things, let that be, say, your hair, or in my case, my eyelashes. Those are things you have to point out. You have to leverage for yourself. If you get compliments on, say, the pants you're wearing, go out and get more. Stick to that style. Replicate what works. And if you have a certain look that people like, maybe, like I mentioned earlier, have a hairstyle, double down on that hairstyle. Make sure you get a regular trim. Make sure you keep it up to date. Make sure you take care of your hair and you pay attention to it, because that's very important if that's one of your strong points, if that's one of your selling points. I'll have women who will match with me on Tinder and they'll say, yeah, I'm just really into dreadheads. You want to know how much play I was getting comparatively before this? It's crazy. So play into your strengths. Observe and adapt. Observe what you see that works. If you see someone out with a certain fit and they have a similar approach to you, see if that works for you. Why not? What's the worst that could happen? What could you lose? I like to think of it as a way as you miss 100% of the shots you do not take. So things like approach anxiety or stepping out of your box is something that you've got to do, especially as a man. You got to think like, okay, where can this lead me? And what would happen to me if I didn't do anything? You'd be in the exact same place. So just go for it. Go for it. I'm always going to be an advocate of trying other things to see if they work and not being ashamed if they don't work. And finally, we're going to wrap this up by talking briefly about the type of girl you would be pursuing and how you can use the red pill and fashion to target that type of girl. So please reference this chart here. This is made by the rational male Rollo Tomasi, and his book, from his book, Preventative Medicine. As you can see, we're not going to pay attention to the terms today, the alpha, beta, forget all that. We're going to focus on the interest. So as you can see, it's basically telling you from the ages 20 to 30, roughly 30, 31, in that transition period, women are looking for something more short term. Now, are there exceptions to this rule? Yes, of course. I know a lot of people who are getting married in their 20s. My friends are married in their 20s. However, the majority of women looking for short term in that time. They're in college, they're students, they're just building their career up. So that's not something that they would focus on. Plus, in the society that we live in, we have to recognize no one is looking for something too serious too soon. So you keep that in mind, and you move along. Looking at the bottom part of that graph, you see physicality is a primary thing all the way up to about 32. Now, that doesn't mean that it will fall off completely for, say, status or provisioning. That just means that the primary focus is going to shift. So your looks will become more of a back burner once you hit that phase. So let's say you're a young man, you're 23 years old. I 1000% would support you taking the approach I had on short-term Instagram optimization. The majority of the people you're going to want to talk to will be on Instagram in that age range, as well as Instagram is the number one dating app. Essentially, it's bigger than Tinder, and you can actually reach more people than you would on Tinder. A lot of people will have their Instagram bio in their Tinder bio. So it's all connected in a sense. So that's something I would like to point out as well, to where Instagram does connect with the modern day marketplace. So if you're not utilizing Instagram, you need to. Back to the graph. As you age, I would shift over from that short-term mindset at about 30 years old. And I say 30 because you essentially, based on the graph, will get the jump on yourself mindset-wise. Because with where you were, it will take about a year or so to kind of change your mindset into, like wanting something long term. And again, these are just recommendations. This is not verbatim. This is not a fact. If you are looking for something more serious at 23, so to speak, that age I gave the example of, definitely do it. But this is just an example of what I would recommend based on where the sexual marketplace is today. So from that graph, you kind of get an idea of how important looks are, especially in the demographic that you're interested in. Now, there's also another study where men across the world typically are most attracted to women roughly between 21 and 25, pinpointing it at 23. So what that means is that the girl that you're going to be pursuing for a majority of your single life is going to have a primary focus on physicality. So your looks, i.e. your fashion. So in summary, get some clothes that fit you. Let your physical pros shine through. And make sure that your Instagram is optimized to the best of your ability to facilitate a more short-term approach, and have it set up to where you can segue into the long term. And if you need to switch back and forth, you can do so. Just archive your post. Let's take it like that. And again, I recommend checking out Rollo Tomasi's books, The Rational Male and Preventative Medicine, to get a lot more backstory about how this stuff can help you and how you can use it for. Again, take what you need, get out, revisit. All right, guys, that's all I have for this video. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. If any of this stuff helped, let me know. I'd love to cover more of this stuff. Kind of a little Kevin Samuels-ish. He made a adaptation from the men's fashion chain to more of red pill discussions. I'm not exactly going to make that jump. I have other things in the works, but I just wanted to provide some info for you to provide some realistic ideas on what you can do at this stage. And if you're finding the dating game a little bit of a struggle, this can at least help you get it going in the right place. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'm out. These my dallas make it hurt.